Hello, party people. This is Jeremy from Jambalaya Plays Games here, and I'm here with Matt Shoemaker from Hit 'em with a Shoe Games, and we are talking about Bee Lives. We only know the summer. We will only know the summer.
Yeah.
All right. Let's sit down and just go through an overview of the game. Just tell us a little about the mechanics. Maybe even tell us the story behind why this game you decided to go with bees and things like that. Just lay it out for us.
Yeah, totally. Happy to do that. So starting off, I've really wanted to do a game about bees. I've been working on games in an educational setting. I'm a librarian in my day job for about 8 years now, and I've done a lot with people working on games for using archival documents and other history types of things in board games and learning how to use them. So I've also been a beekeeper for the past 8 years.
Whoa.
Yeah, so part of this was me just inspired by loving bees and social insects and what they do, and thinking about how awesome it would be to have a worker placement and resource management type game about bees.
Okay.
So I looked around, surveyed the market, and then, you know what? I didn't really find anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I figured, why not? Let's make Bee Lives, We Will Only Know Summer. It's a little dour name, just a little background on that part of it. I named it that because bees only live for about 30 days in the summer when they're working hard, doing everything. They literally work themselves to death. So summer, even though it seems like it'd be the idyllic time for bees, is actually pretty terrible for them. So
it's a crude summer.
It is a crude summer. Yeah. So I use that name to kind of honor the bees that work through summer and go through a terrible time to make delicious honey and help the rest of them all survive.
I did not even know that about bees. Now I'm really interested in this stuff because beekeepers are very interesting people. I always want to know everything that they know about this bee stuff. So, okay, do tell. Let's.
Okay. So I'll just run you through the game quickly on how to play it, and then maybe we can go through a round or two.
Okay.
So first off, we have here our comb. This is the inside of your hive. So this game takes place in basically 2 different theaters. You have your own hive here, and then we have the outside world here. And I'll talk more about that in a little bit. So the first thing you need to know is that bees do a lot of stuff based on space and how many resources that they have and how much space they think they have. So the main driver of this is our comb board here on the right. Now it's numbered 1 through 40, and it starts off in the 10 position. This is the maximum number of resources that you can have in this game. So there are 5 main resources in this game, one of which is hidden, and I'll explain that a little bit. The first and most important one is your workers. Your workers can also be used to take certain actions in this game beyond worker placement that will sacrifice them. So you need to use them carefully as well. The next most important resource is right here, these little yellow cubes. This is honey.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, no, surprise, surprise.
I didn't know that.
So honey is used for several things in this game. First off, it is victory points in the end of the game. 1 honey cube equals 1 victory point for whatever you have at the end of the winter season. The other thing honey does is it feeds your bees, of course. 1 honey cube feeds up to 2 bees. And if your bees don't get it, they starve and you lose them.
Oh, okay.
So you gotta have honey to feed them. And the third final thing is taking this build wax option here. So with this option, you can spend 2 honey cubes and 1 worker bee, and you can increase this number by 1.
Okay.
Lets you store more stuff.
Okay.
All right, the next important resource is pollen. These orange cubes here. So if you don't know much about bees, then I'm telling you now, the only time in an entire bee's life that they get protein is when they are larvae, and they get it from pollen.
Okay.
So they feed this to the larvae, and they grow. So we're doing that in a game mechanic by saying every protein in the form of pollen that you have will turn into a larva.
Okay.
Now the way that works though is with eggs. This is the hidden resource I mentioned.
Yeah.
So if you notice here, I'll put this back down in size, and I'm going to add one more resource for demonstration purposes here. So the queen needs space in the hive to lay eggs. So right here we've got 2 empty spaces, so she has laid eggs in both of those.
Oh.
So now even though we've got 4 pollen here, we've only got 2 eggs. So that means these 2 pollen are going to go away, and we are going to get 2 brand new worker bees out of that. So that's how that works.
Okay.
The final resource is water, which is these blue cubes. Now this is really a specialty resource. It only comes up when certain environmental cards that we have here come into play with an effect called overheating. Overheating basically means that it's too hot for the brood to survive, and the bees, they turn on their little air conditioning units, which is literally their wings, and they evaporate water within their hive to cool it down. So you need to spend water units and take this cool hive action to successfully cool down your hive, or else all of your larvae get killed and you don't get any new bees. It's pretty hardcore.
Whoa. That's 1 worker. So, or one worker.
It's one worker plus one water for up to 5 bees.
Oh, okay.
So I've got any of that stuff you need to explain, just ask.
Sorry, party people. I'm kind of I'm a little far away.
Yeah.
Okay. That's why I make sure you get understand it.
Cool.
Okay.
All right. So that brings us to our other actions. So the next one on here is clean bees. So we over here have this little varroa mite guy. Now, varroa mite is one of the big plagues of bees today. And we're just using him to represent disease overall. So every time you take the forage action, which means you go out to actually get food, pollen, or honey or water, and come back, this guy moves up this track by 1. Now to mitigate that, you can take the clean bees action, and that will push it back by 1 for every bee you use to do that.
Okay.
The next 2 actions are related to robbing. So it's not exactly combat, but it is a little bit of resource taking and a very tiny bit of take that that's in this game. You can totally ignore it if you want to or not, but I will tell you that there are AI-driven hives in this game, which I'll get to later.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they help a lot with the solo. It's a pretty simple AI, but it works well for harassing other players with them, and also sort of for a way for you to get resources, and also by victory points by either successfully defending against them or stealing from them. All right, I already talked about the cool hive. Requeening brings us to our queens. So we have here 4 different queens. So this brings a little asymmetry into the game.
Okay.
So we have from starting here the hygienic queen. What she basically does is every other time you forage, this guy goes up instead of every time.
Okay.
So that's handy. This one here with all the baby bees on the front is the prolific queen. With her, you only need 2 pollen to get 3 baby bees. So you get more workers for less space and less money. This one here with this what looks like a tornado is supposed to be a bunch of bees swarming out of the hive. She is the swarms frequently queen. So there's a rule about swarming, which I'll come to after I talk about the queens, and I'll come back to her. The final one here with the sword is the aggressive queen. The aggressive queen gives you a bonus. For every 2 bees you use in a robbing or defending action, it counts as 3. So she's a lot more effective
like
for that.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Is she +1 or is she just?
She's just +1.
+1. Okay.
So we're going to lose one. I'm going to choose for this game, just for illustration purposes, the hygienic queen and stick her up here.
I want to fight.
You want to fight? Go for it.
Fight.
Fighting is good.
All right.
All right. So swarming, while we're there, we'll talk about it. So when you swarm when 2 things happen. One, if your eggs value is 0, meaning it's all full, the bees think there's no space and they'll leave.
Right.
The other is if there's no space because there's too many workers. So you'll notice on here, we've got these little player aids built into the card. For the regular queen, it's marked in this greenish yellow circle, and that is the number of bees you can have before swarming. So if you've got 12 wax, so you've got your stop marker on 13, you can have up to 6 bees before you got to get out of there. When you get 6, or 7 in this case, you're going to make a new swarm. Now this is both good and bad. It's good because you get victory points. You get 5 for doing it in the springtime, 3 for doing it in the summer, and 1 for doing it in the fall.
Okay.
So the later in the game, the less it's worth.
Okay.
The other thing that happens is half your bees, rounded down, and half your honey, rounded down also, leaves your hive. And you make one of those AI hives that I talked about before.
Okay.
You can also use this to move across the shared map. Now, I know I haven't talked about the map yet, but we're going to get there in just a second. So there is a way to move. You're not stuck in your starting home the entire game.
Okay.
Now, the other marker on here in the purple hexagon, that's for the swarms frequently queen I mentioned. She swarms when you're at 1/3 capacity instead of over half.
Okay.
So she just does it more often. Okay, and the final action you can take other than foraging, which is getting the resources, is scouting. So, in the beginning of the game, we'll move to the map out here now. Everybody starts on what's called a bloom tile. Now, there are 4 different tiles for the game, and they're each tied, well, 3 of them are tied to the seasons. The bloom ones are the green ones, and they are the best in the spring season. Then we have the yellow ones here. These are the wilt tiles. They are best in the summer.
Okay.
The orange are harvest. They are best in the fall. And then finally we have these bluish tiles. They're wet tiles. They're the only tiles you can normally get water.
Huh. Okay.
So that's how that works.
Okay.
So we start out, the map looks like this for a 2-player game.
Okay. And then
Take the scout action, put a guy down there, go in this bag, and grab a tile at random, and stick down what you found. There we go, we found a harvest tile.
Okay.
So you're going to build this up. I'm just going to go forward a little bit here. Let's pretend this is like this. So we've been playing for a little bit. Now during spring, we're all separate. We're all nice. All the bees are They're kind of doing their own thing. There's so many resources, they're not paying attention to each other. Come summer, though, we start paying attention to each other because there's less resources. So what we're going to do is we're going to combine the player maps however we want. I'm just going to stick this over here and rotate it here, and you would do that for strategy reasons, of course.
Right.
Move that bag a little bit. And now we can interact with and take the rob and defend actions against each other. Now remember what I mentioned before, when you swarm, you create a wild hive. So I'm just going to steal one over here. So let's say 3 of my bees left on the spider hive. I'll move that up to strength 3. And I get to place this any spot I want within 3 tiles of me. So 1, 2, 3, stick that there. Now that hive is your problem. You got to deal with it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So you kind of create a rival. Okay.
Yep, so you create rivals.
Okay.
Now, as I mentioned, well, actually, I don't think I mentioned it, but this game has a good solo player mode. I've currently got I've got 2 or 3 campaign modes in the works right now.
Wow.
And I've got about 10 different scenario cards that you can use for challenges. So you can play the vanilla game solo because you generate your own opponents in a lot of ways. And then if you want extra challenges, you've got different goals that you can go for to either try to use, or the scenarios that are more like campaigns. Like one of them I have right now I'm working on is called Wildfire. So you play 1 year of the game. The game can be played in 1, 2, or 3 year lengths. And the first year you just play a normal game. And then the second year, these tiles are on fire.
Oh,
so what will happen is we'll start losing them, and they'll be vanishing. And if your hive is left on these tiles as they burn up, then you're going to lose the game. So you got to constantly move across and still deal with these opponents that you've got.
I'm excited about this. I wasn't expecting campaign. I wasn't expecting that many modules and that much replay value. Can you tell us a little bit about this board over here? This
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So this is meant to simulate kind of what weather would be like.
Okay.
So there are 9 cards for each season. You flip them over for depending what season you're in. And I guess I didn't talk about game length. Hey, I should probably do that.
Yeah.
So the game is played in 1 year lengths of 3 seasons of 3 months each, and then winter is an upkeep phase.
Okay.
So for the first one, you just pull a card at random. This one is we got the beginning of the flow, which means bloom tiles, which again are the green ones, give you 1 extra honey when you forage them, so you can get more resources. So you'll just flip through these and reveal them. So now we're in May, last month of spring, and we'll go to summer.
Oh.
And then you just work through the seasons like that to the end of the game.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, wow, that's really nifty.
Cool.
All right, well, with that, we just want to sit down and give you a full overview of the game. I'm going to probably put up another video to show you guys the actual gameplay. But Matt, thank you for showing off this Bee Lives game. It looks awesome. When is it hitting Kickstarter, or is it publishing soon?
It's going to hit Kickstarter. We're aiming for the fall. I'm targeting an early September launch date, but I can't confirm that 100% yet.
Okay.
We will be at Gen Con if you want to check us out there. We'll have a booth 3058.
Oh, wow. Okay, so stay tuned to Jambalaya Plays Games. We'll have a little bit more coverage of this, but stay tuned as well and stay on the channel. We will probably have a little bit of a gameplay video. And with that, thank you for your time and have a good one.